Hi everyone, and welcome back to what did we call this show again? The Type 1 Dialogues, the T1 Dialogues, which I always thought was a really great name. But it's been a bit of a hiatus, I think maybe at least 6 months. I had a baby, got a 9-month-old baby boy now. Keeps life interesting. I've also started a diabetes technology business. I'm not going to go too much into that today, but that's keeping me on my toes. And so a number of things caused us to have a bit of a delay. And it's good to be back. So what's instigated us to be back is actually a friend, a colleague, and a fellow person with type 1 diabetes to be politically correct. And maybe political correctness around diabetes is a topic we can have in a future podcast, Jackson. But yeah, want to introduce Jackson Sinclair, who is he's a pretty well-known person with type 1 diabetes in the Australian diabetes scene and even a little bit globally. I think the first time I stumbled on Jackson was a YouTube video of him in Bali surfing, talking about his Libre. And I can't remember whether the topic was around like keeping it stuck on, but the video ranked well. It was kind of like everywhere. And I think early days of Not Just a Patch, I found myself searching for, what's out there in the ether around keeping these devices stuck on, because that was the space where we were moving into, or we were in. So I think that's the first time I saw Jackson, and gotten to know him a lot more. Happy to be co-hosting this podcast and kicking off the series after a long hiatus. So welcome, Jackson.
G'day everyone. Very stoked to be here. Yeah, you definitely took me back to yesteryear, making videos in Bali about wishing there was something like the patch. I think I was using a 3M film over the top of my Freestyle Libre, and it was the only thing I could find. And I was doing extensive research at the time. And hence I made that video because everyone was going bananas online, going, how do we keep these Freestyle Libres on? And I think the video did so well is because Australia got it before America, and I made that video as America or the FDA approved it. So yeah, that went crazy on my YouTube, and I guess that's how it brought us together, which was fantastic. And you interviewed me, I think, in 2000.
Oh
It was
yeah, that's
just
right. You took your
no, not
shirt off.
2000, 2020.
I think the only guest to date to be topless on our podcast. So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Well
Well,
done, Jackson.
maybe we can spice things up later this year. But yeah, no, that was the first time we actually, I guess, visually met, and
Yeah.
it was great. I think we have a lot in common, and I'm excited about this podcast and where it's going to be going this year. I mean, we've been spitballing ideas, but as you're always,
Hang on, where is it going? Where is this podcast going?
oh, this podcast is going around the world, but hopefully. But like, I think we're going to be diving in and speaking to healthcare professionals, diabetics who are really making a difference in the diabetes world. And then we may even, tackle politically correctness and what
Mm.
does that mean
We
in
could
the
get
world of
Renza
diabetes.
back on. Do you know Renza?
Renza,
Renza
yeah.
she is like a spokesperson, an advocate for the cause.
Yes, yeah, I know Renza.
She's based in Melbourne. I get her, she writes a blog, and her most recent blog actually talked to, and she writes a blog, and she's an advocate for using correct terminology and so forth. Oh yeah, I interviewed her way back. I think she might have been one of the earlier guests. And I remember seeking her out because she was so vocal and opinionated in this space. And I love those people. I love people who like speak their mind. Don't always say the thing that like is, correct for everyone, but says the thing that like they believe strongly in. So
Yeah,
um
politically correctness.
political correctness, yeah. I mean, I think it'd actually be great to get her back on.
Yeah,
Uh,
I just
talk
want
a
to
little bit
map
about that.
out the whole T1D community. I think it's, I mean, diabetes is isolating when it's just you, but when you connect with so many other diabetics who are suffering the same things, it's actually fantastic. The movements in the space, the fact that we have CGMs now, and how that evolution is coming, and patches to keep them on. These things have exploded over the last couple of years, and I'm excited to sort of map it out by this podcast.
Agreed. So I interrupted you. Sorry, you were talking about flipping something.
Yes, I'm flipping the script. You're the interviewer, and I want to become the interviewer. So you're gonna be the interviewee.
Good luck.
I hope this all makes sense. And I'm gonna interview you with a few big questions. That not just a patch, and you've got a few other products coming out at the moment. But let's start with who you are. Have you ever introduced yourself and how long you've had diabetes for?
I've had diabetes for 17 years. I think I have. I've used my face and my voice a bit with the brand. So I guess not everybody who follows the brand would be aware of me, but yeah, I had diabetes for 17 years. I got diagnosed when I was 30 years old, 30. I was living in London at the time. I was working really hard. I was enjoying my work, but when I look back, I do wonder if the stress associated with it was anything to do with it. Just a question that I have. I was also training for the London Marathon, and it was kind of winter time. I think it was like later in the year in London, so quite chilly. And my memories of that were that on the way into work in the morning, I would just get I'd go to this shop and I'd get a juice that was like the size of half my body. It was like a fresh juice of some sort, like cold and sugary. And I'd sit at my desk and I'd just like suck it down. And that didn't really like trigger any additional thought. Like I didn't think, oh, that's strange or what's that about? But I was peeing excessively. That also didn't really trigger anything necessarily. I didn't like,
No. I mean, you would have thought juice, healthy, hydrated, right?
Yeah, I didn't really add them together. And then my eyesight all of a sudden got blurry.
Ooh.
And I will remember, because I've always had great eyesight, particularly back then. And I remember thinking, what the hell's going on? I went to an optometrist. He did an eye test. And he's like, yep, you need glasses. And I was like, what the hell is that all about? But I was like, okay, well, I need glasses. I still didn't really put anything together. I wasn't concerned about anything. And then I was talking to a mate back in Australia, randomly mentioning how much I was drinking, how much I was peeing, and my blurry vision. And he was like, Pete, either you've got rabies or you've got diabetes. I think he was joking about the rabies. So I don't think they're the symptoms. So I went into Boots, a local pharmacy chain, and picked up a test kit. I tested myself. I was off the charts. It just said high or whatever. Went into my GP like the next day or something because I felt fine. I guess I was skinny because I was training for the marathon. So I was running quite a bit. And went to the GP and she tested me. She's like, yeah, you've got diabetes and you need to go to the hospital now. And I felt fine. So I said to her, oh, look, I've got a busy day at work. I feel fine. I'll go after work because I've got stuff I need to do. She was like, well, if you don't get in a taxi to the hospital, I'm going to call an ambulance. She's like, you shouldn't even be sitting up awake right now with the numbers that she was reading.
Wow. So do you remember how high?
No, I don't remember how high. But high enough that I guess she tested my ketones as well. Yeah. And I guess my body was eating itself at the time because I don't know how long it would have been. But I guess I probably still had some insulin production going on as well, which is maybe why I felt fine. So I don't know.
All that training as well.
Yeah.
I mean, that would lower your glucose, except those bottle of juices.
That's true. That's true. So that probably helped. So anyway, I went to the hospital. They were like, yep, you got diabetes. They said, don't eat honey, and here's some test strips and some insulin. Good luck. And that was really it. I didn't really have any much engagement with the healthcare system after that. I mean, the healthcare system in the UK is great, and it's always there if you need it. But I just kind of like got on with it.
Yeah.
So that's my story. Anyway.
Wait, when you say you got on with it, did you run the marathon?
Yeah, I still did the marathon. That was in April.
How did you go?
Year. I finished it. It was my first marathon. I think I did like 3 hours 20, which I was a bit disappointed with because a guy in the office I worked in, he did 3 hours and he was old and overweight. So I was like, well,
Oh no. Well, you have a great excuse. Just
yeah.
don't have a lot
Well,
of
no, I
people.
don't think that was the excuse at all. I think I don't think. I mean, Steve Redgrave was an Olympic rower, so I don't think having diabetes is really. And then you got Jack Trigger over there in the UK, who's I don't know if you've heard of him. He's a solo around the world yachtsman, who I
Yeah,
also
but
interviewed
these
back
guys
then.
aren't diagnosed before they race or sail. Like
True, 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 true.
that's
I think back and I go, how the hell did I run a marathon without a CGM? I think I did three
yeah.
marathons all without CGM. And I think about it now and go, wow, it's kind of a scary prospect just to be alive for a day without a CGM these days. Like I don't
Yeah.
know, the idea of it like makes me anxious.
You'd be running in the dark.
But I think what I did was, did I run with a little test kit and some strips, or did I have people around? I mean, I might have had people around with a test kit, and I'd stop and test. But I also think I trained, right? I trained quite a lot. So through the training, you figure out how much like a long acting to have, how much to drop it down to.
Yeah.
And I think back then my long acting was really low anyway. Like my daily long acting was like around 15 units or something. So for the
Yeah.
marathon, I think I went down to like 5 units or something like that. So
Yeah, fair enough. I know. I look. I've run half and quarter marathons, and yeah, I'd hypo halfway on both. So the fact that you can get through it in one
yeah,
hit
I never
without losing
hypoed, but
you
I think
up.
that I also carried lots of sugar with me, lots of those little sugary sachets, and drank
Yeah.
every sugary drink I could get. So yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Anyway,
Anyway,
young,
glad you
young.
survived because you
Yeah,
went on to create not just a patch.
I did. I did.
So tell me about that. You saw my little, I guess, documentary of trying to figure out a way to keep sensors on.
Yeah.
How did you come about this and then launch not just a patch? Because I think your
Yeah.
brand was one of the first on the market.
Yeah, it wasn't the first, but the thought, I always say this to people, the idea was my own original idea. As in, I was wearing a Libre, started swimming more, I was doing yoga, it was getting loose, right? So it used to bug me, right? Like by day, I don't know, somewhere between day 7 and 10, the edges would start lifting up.
Mm.
Like even if I didn't do much, the edges would just start lifting up. And I was paying back then, right? Like we paid for them before June last year, and that was what was that? That was $200 a month, $100 a pop every 2 weeks, right? So the expense and just the annoyance. So by like day 10, you'd be like, I was getting anxious. Like I'd be constantly monitoring it, checking on it, feeling it, and like most of the time, even if I wasn't that active, the edges would lift and it would by day 11, 12, 13, it stopped working. Like it was actually rare that it got to day 14 and like was fully functional. You know what I mean? So, and I dealt with that for maybe I had it for when I had like was wearing a Libre for maybe a year or so. And then the swimming, I started swimming, I was training for like some swimming stuff and I couldn't really do 20 laps with of like proper swimming without it coming off. Like so I was taping it down, right? Coupled with me listening to a Tim Ferriss podcast. And I guess I was listening to Tim Ferriss because, like, he's in that kind of startup world. You learn stuff, and that's that's the interesting thing is that you kind of listen to that stuff because maybe in the back of your mind you hope it might spark something, and you might learn, you might end up doing something, and it did. Like he interviewed these two young German guys who had come up with a product, was some sort of back support product because they were students and they had back issues. They were like software engineer students. That was also like in December when I listened to that podcast. And that time of year, like, I don't know about you, but that's the time of year when like you reflect and you're like, right, new year. Like you're always like gonna do something different this year. And basically, I think it was like, I don't remember the date, it was early January after listening to that podcast, what's the problem that you have? So I started looking like around in my world, like what's the problem that I have that maybe I can solve for myself and other people. And I'd been taping down my CGM, right? My Libre. So I woke up one January morning, and I just went, maybe I could commercialize this patch idea. Like maybe I could make a patch. It was an independent thought. So the reason that that's a good thing is that starting your own business, bloody hard work, man. Like, and I think that, and there's other copycats out there now. But if I was a copycat, if I was someone who saw someone else do it and just wanted to copy the idea, I just wouldn't have the energy. I wouldn't do it. I'd half-ass it. So I think that's the good thing for me about it being an independent thought, was that I brought something to market that was a brand I really believed in and loved, was some modifications to the design that I felt strongly about. And I was just motivated to get it out there in the world. And we're now selling in 65 countries. We're in, we're well known in Australia. I think we're pretty well known in the community in general now as a brand, and that's really rewarding to think I've built a brand that is pretty well known in the community. We're the only CGM patch brand in 5,000 Walgreens and 3,000 CVS stores in the US. That's a big win for us. The business is growing, and I love it, man.
This is a great segue, because you're still innovating the patch.
Yeah, nothing pisses me off more than unhappy customers.
Yeah, well, you've innovated the Air, and you've launched that this year, which I'm excitedly wearing at the moment.
It's always I think the three core things when launching the whole name, not just a patch, right? That came because I didn't want to just make a patch. And I know people have fun with the name, right? People who don't like the product, they're like, oh, it's just a patch. It's yeah, it is just a patch, but it's not just a patch, because it's about more than that. It's about kind of community, and it's about giving back to the community, and we give back. We've got this grants program that we're going to talk about. We donate money when we can. We give back profit to the community. It's about fun and perspective. So that's really, my version of Renza, if you like, is what I advocate for is fun and perspective, because I don't like to see too many people feeling sorry for themselves. And so I like to try and encourage people to be optimistic, to think that there's people out there worse off. Now, in saying that, I do find myself complaining quite a lot lately, so I've got to take some of my own advice. So what was that? So giving back, fun and perspective, and innovating. So commitment to evolve the designs and materials and so forth. And there has been points where I've gone, oh God, it's hard work. And we've had bad feedback on patches. They're lifting up at the edges and so forth. And I go, oh God, this is wearing me down. And then I go, hang on, I'm just, we just got to make a better patch. So that's what Not Just a Patch Air is about. There's still some negative feedback on that, which is annoying me. So now I've got to go and figure that one out as well. Keep innovating. I don't know if it'll ever end. And I think that the concept of putting an adhesive on human skin may be just fraught with never-ending poor feedback. I don't know if there is the perfect patch for everyone. One, because skin reacts to anything. Skin reacts to air, it reacts to water, it reacts to rolling around the grass. It's an organ, and it's a frontline defense for our immune system, right? So whenever you put a foreign substance on your skin, there's a risk. So we're never going to escape that. No matter how hypoallergenic our adhesive is, it's always going to cause a reaction in some people, in a percentage of people.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's why you got to keep innovating, isn't it? Just keep trying to make a better patch.
A better patch. You are right, man. That's really what Not Just a Patch Air was about, was finding a better material. I personally like it. It's softer, it's much lighter and thinner. It's a more material. It's a more of the other patches are a cotton spandex material, and they're a bit hardier. This is much thinner and lighter, and it's got more of a cotton feel to it.
Yeah. Well, do you want to talk about grants before we get into the pipeline for this year? What's this grant supporting diabetic specialists?
Really easy. It fits with that purpose that I mentioned earlier, which is giving back to the community. We had been donating to insulin access for all, because we saw that was being a big problem we wanted to support. We've now moved on to the healthcare professionals in general. And for me, I've been working in and around healthcare all my career, right? Health information management was the degree I did at university. So I've been in healthcare for a long time, forever. It's something that bothers me is how underappreciated our healthcare professionals are. And I think COVID really brought this to the fore for me, because I always saw that people out there, the conspiracy theorists out there who thought that COVID wasn't real. For me, I was like, well, what you're saying to me is you don't believe in our healthcare professionals, because it's my belief in our healthcare professionals that says what they're advising us to do nationally is the right course of action, because their entire life and career was invested in helping me and the community. And like, it was really annoying for me that people didn't see, people distrusted the broader healthcare system. And whilst there are certainly healthcare professionals out there who probably thought COVID was whatever, were conspiracy theorists, the vast majority of healthcare professionals didn't. And they agreed with what was happening. And so I just saw that, and not just that, but they're on the front line at the same time, right? Like, they're out there forced to go to work every day. We're sitting in our apartments and our houses safe. They're on the front line taking care of us. And then getting this criticism to say, well, you're taking care of us, but you're also lying to us. So like, I think it was easy. Like, when I thought about like how we wanted to give back, this year particularly, it was like grants to healthcare professionals, particularly diabetes nurses, but healthcare professionals in general. So we've got a grant program. We've got $3,000 for Europe, $3,000 for Australia and New Zealand, $3,000 for North America. So that's Canada and US. And we're accepting submissions, and we're actually still scoping it a little bit. We probably need to figure out. But essentially what we're looking for is a good story, right? It's like, we just want to hear a good story from a nurse or a healthcare professional in the diabetes space who's done something really interesting or really impactful, or who plans to do something, or just has an impactful story to tell. Essentially, we want to support the community. And so the grant funding will go towards whatever that healthcare professional wants. So there'll be 3 grants then, and it's towards something relating to diabetes. So career, education, clinic, something that kind of contributes to that particular individual's situation around diabetes.
Yeah. I hope we can get it out to anyone and everyone who's in the field, because this will help anyone really, get a bit of a financial booster to get them helping us. But I'm excited to be a part of the team, excited to be running this podcast now. And I guess while I have you and, shining a light, we got 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about penguin cases? Because we've got a few things in the pipeline.
We've got a redesign happening.
Well, redesign, you currently are selling these. We haven't spoken about these.
No, we haven't. We haven't done a lot of promotion, and that actually comes because we launched it at a time where I started working on this diabetes tech idea that I mentioned at the beginning. And so it hasn't had as much love as the patch business has had. But essentially, it's an evaporative cooling case, and the origin story for that is that I was actually sitting at a restaurant with a mate, talking about the business, about not just a patch, and talking about like ideas, the next idea. And I actually had my Frio case on me on the table in the restaurant, and somehow the conversation got around to me going like, oh, imagine like a cooling case using the same technology, which are polyacrylate crystals, but like it looks sexy. And that's where that's come from, really. It's basically the same functionality, right? Which is it's really easy to use. It's an evaporative case, so you just wet it, the crystals absorb, and as they evaporate, they keep a temperature inside that's lower than the outside, and that keeps the pen cool. So it's really simple. It was a difficult product to design, because actually that putting that idea into that shape and making it look sexy was a challenge, but we got there. There's a few little areas that I want to improve on it, but I'm happy with it, and version 2 is coming.
Yeah, just in case if I didn't show up before, I was showcasing the penguin case and
penguin cool case,
how it all works.
Keep your pen cool while you're out in a fancy restaurant on a date.
It looks pretty bloody snazzy.
Eye-catching.
I think it's great. And should we talk about anything else in the pipeline? Because you've got a few ideas, and it's actually fantastic to see these products come out to support us.
Pipeline. Oh, do we want to talk pipeline today? What do you reckon? I don't know.
We can save it for a later episode.
I reckon we save it. Let's save it. We got stuff coming, actually, which I'm excited about. It'll be fun. There's some fun branding there, fun products, I'm looking forward to it. Let's keep people hanging though.
All right. Well, keep everyone on the edge of their seats. So if anyone wants to find out more, they can go to notjustapatch.com. Follow Not Just a Patch on the socials.
Yeah.
There's also Penguin Cool Casing, which you can also check out. Yeah, I guess everything else, stay tuned to this podcast.
Yeah, we got the grants and the samples on the page now. The samples are really only for healthcare professionals as well. But if you're listening and you want samples, go and tell your healthcare professional to get you some. because that's how we work.
Notjustapatch.com, see that samples tab. It'll take you to where you need to go. But if you're not a healthcare professional, just send that link to your healthcare professional and help them set you up.
If you got any feedback on the podcast for guests in particular, we've got a pretty, we're going to be doing one a month. Is that right?
Oh, look, I'd want to go more if I can. But yeah, that's,
you love a chat,
if you
man.
want
That's why.
I love a good chat.
Well, we can talk about some of your adventures coming up on subsequent podcasts. It's actually really nice to have someone doing this with me, to be honest, Jackson. It was weird talking to the camera on my own. So it takes a load off, and it's much more fun doing this, I've realized, in the last half an hour. So it's cool to have you on board, man.
Stoked to be here. Stoked to be a part of it.
Anything else you want to say?
Till next time, tune in, subscribe, rate this, I don't know, share it.
Peace.
All right, that's it.
Want to say hi to Leo, my son?
Sure.
Is that appropriate? Do you want to bring Leo in and say hi to the podcast, Aviva, that I'm recording? I'm recording a podcast right now. My face has gone red. It's Leo. Say hi to
Leo!
the podcast world. Say hi to Jackson.
Hello!
There you go.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome.
I'm going all red now. I don't know if that's what you want to be doing in podcast world, but anyway.
Oh, look, it's great. This is an interview. I'm interviewing you, and it's great. I'm seeing a bit of your life.